You did it. You made it through 5 chapters of SendCutSend education. Now in this lesson, we're going to take all of that knowledge and we're going to put it into one capstone project. This will be part 1, so let's get into it. It's common practice in education to take a cumulative exam at the end of all of your learnings. Now, we're not going to have a test for you guys, but what we're going to do is a capstone project where we're going to take everything from chapters 1 through 5 and put it into one cohesive design. What we're going to do is, I was looking at my producer Dom's desk. It's a disaster, and I want to organize it a little bit better. And so we're going to end up having some pencils, a marker spot, as well as a shelf to put our Post-it notes because they're everywhere, and then a drawer to put some paper clips or whatever else she needs to put in there. Now, what we're going to end up doing here is we're going to have this in 2 parts. We're going to go over the main components and have the dimensions put into it. And then the second part, we're going to dive into how to have each component interact with each other, as well as account for powder coating. With that being said, let's jump straight into CAD and get going with this design. In here, I have my origin shown. We have a blank slate ready to go. The first thing that I want to do is have my origin be centered within my design. And so what I'm going to do with that is create a construction plane or an offset plane off of one of my original origin planes. Now with that, I'm going to move over and I'm going to make this essentially a cube that is 5 5/8 in all dimensions. So we're going to go 5.625 divided by 2 because I want it to be centered. That's going to be half that distance. Clicking OK. I now have this plane out here in the distance that I can create a sketch for my first side piece. Clicking on creating a sketch, we're going to select that plane. And we're still going to work off of our original origin as the bottom left corner of this piece. So we're going to come up here, click, create a rectangle. And off of that, we're going to do 5.625 on one side and 5.625 on the other. Once we click OK, we can recenter our workpiece so we can see what we're doing here. We can even rotate sideways just to make sure that all of our spacing looks correct. This looks really, really great. One thing that we can add is I want a nice corner radius here so that Dawn doesn't cut herself when she's putting away her markers. And so we're going to come up here to modify and create that fillet. And we're just going to simply click on that corner. Clicking on that corner adds that radius. And now we can kind of play with it until we like the size of it, especially since this isn't going to be a feature to this part. 2.5 seems about right. It ends up coming about half on both sides. We'll click enter on that. And now we have the piece that we're looking for. Now the last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and create this as a sheet metal component. So we're going to come up here. We can click finish sketch. We have something selectable. We have that good, robust black drawing that is fully constrained. It's ready to go. We can make changes later on and it's going to follow through. So just like what we talked about in chapters 1 and 2, we're going to come up here, click flange, and select that side profile. Now again, we have that dialog box pop up here with flange. We'll move it down here so we can see everything at the same time. Everything in here is going to be something we're going to want to consider. Now the first thing is which side do we want? So we can go side 1 or side 2. Well, on this, I want the inside of it to be that dimension that we set the plane. So I want to make sure that that profile is being extruded outward, which is going to be side 1. Now operation, we want to do component. We talked about in that earlier chapter that we want everything to be put in their individual drawers so we can control that sheet metal rule in the background. For this one, we're going to select and go down into 63 thousandths 5052 for this part. Keep it nice and light and not too bulky. Clicking OK, we have our first component of our assembly. Coming over here to the tree, we can also see that first component is now in here, and we have this little anchor. One thing that I want you to know is that little anchor means that it's grounded to the parent, meaning that the original origin and the original component, master component, it's now fixed in space between those two. So we can't click and move this part anywhere. It's really important that we have that set that way. With that, the next thing we're going to do is that we need to create the wall on the other side. Now we could create another extruded or another plane that's offset from the original one and then do the exact same sketch process. We could even create that plane from here over and then project this plane over and create that sheet metal body, or we can just mirror the entire component over, which is what we're going to do. We're going to come up to create. We're going to drop down to mirror. And when we come out of the dialog box here, we're going to select component because we want to do a whole new component. So it's independent. Selecting this, we're going to select the mirror plane that we want, which is that center. And this is a big reason why we want that origin in the center. It allows us to do these mirror features. And we can click OK. So there's that. So now we quickly got two different components that are the two outside walls to our project. Now, we've drawn this face and this face, and I want you to pardon my screws. I forgot about the screws. Now we need to draw this back panel that ends up wrapping all the way around this part. Now this is going to be a main structural component in the end for our part, and so we want it to be flush all the way down the back, and then flush along the bottom here. So let's jump back into CAD here and add that part. Now there's multiple ways that we can do this, as always with CAD, but a great way to do this would be to select this back plane here or to select one of these surfaces. I'm going to go ahead and select one of these surfaces. Mind you that if I select a surface on a component or a body and that body disappears, I lose my reference. It's much safer to go off of this plane or this. Just know that you're kind of playing games selecting a surface on a body. We're going to go ahead and just select the surface just to show you that it does work and it will hold up. And what we're going to do is create a projection of both of the back sides of our parts. Now once we have that projection, we're going to click OK. And we have that interior geometry kind of laid out. We could have done that as construction, but it doesn't really hurt us to do it without construction lines. Now we're going to select a rectangle. We're going to draw from that top left corner down to the bottom left corner. And this essentially outlines the back piece of our storage container. With that, I can go back into sheet metal, create my flange, and select that surface. Now zooming in, you can see here that it's actually proud. It's sticking out the back of my part. So first thing I need to do, set my orientation. We're going to select side 2 so that it's tucked in and flush like we just wanted here, as well as select new component. Make sure that we put it in its own drawer so that we can change the thickness of this part independent of the rest of our assembly. And we're going to have it set at the same thickness to start here. Clicking OK. We have that back panel, but we wanted this to roll over and come across the bottom of our part here. So with that, we're going to click on flange again. We talked about this a little bit in our sheet metal components lessons. We're going to select that inside component and move it all the way over. If you remember back to our original dimensions for this part, it's 5 5/8, essentially cubed out. And so we have a handful of different dimensions and characters that we can play with here. I'm going to roll up on the side here, and we can see that my part ends up kind of sticking out the end of it here. If I look, my measurement is on the outer face. So it's from here to the end of the flange is how I have it currently selected. So if I type in on this 5.625, you can see that it ends up coming out to be completely flush on the end. If I come back, if I change this to my inner face, you're going to see it sticks out because now I'm measuring from this inner wall to the end of the flange. So just make sure you're playing with these to get the correct measurement. And then the last thing is my bend position. Right now, I'm coming out to be completely flush. Looks great, feels great, but what I want to do, but if I had it on the outside, you can see that it would be sticking out proud on the bottom, and adjacent means that it would be sticking out even more. It means that the bend starts where I clicked instead of ends where I clicked. So we're going to move this back to inside. We have a nice flush bottom, and we'll click OK. So that's it for our second component. We can come up here to this part right here, and we can see that we have a single body in there. We can change that to a new rule, everything is independent. One thing that we're going to do really quick right here is we're going to right click on this and we're going to ground each one of these to our parents. This essentially makes it so that now I can't move that component around on the screen and lose my assembly. I could also do this with the joint, but we're going to skip the joints since we drew it in this manner and just lock them into that orientation. We can see that little anchor is on each one of these. That kind of tells us what we're doing. Now, one thing that we want to do, and this is just kind of fit and form, is we want to roll this corner and match this radius here. If we come up and we do an inspection and we click on this, we can see that the radius is 0.098 and the diameter is 0.2, essentially. So if we come up to modify underneath our sheet metal, we can go to fillet. We can click on this corner as well as this corner. And we can type in that radius of 0.1. And we come up here, sorry, 0.1. And we have this nicely matched corner, something that we're not going to cut any fingers on later on. That's awesome. Okay, so we have 3 more components to go here. On this next one, we're going to build out this inner shelf where this is all one piece. So it's going to come in, come up that face here. So we're flush on the top, we're flush here, and we want a certain amount of spacing here. Back in the CAD here, we're going to do another offset plane. And the reason why we're going to do that is we want a certain amount of distance from the bottom to the top to set our shelf in. So we're going to offset our plane from here. We're going to go up 2 inches. And that's going to create that 2-inch pocket on the inside that we're looking for. We're going to click OK. And then we're going to sketch up on that newly created plane. Additionally, we're going to take project. I'm going to turn on construction on this one. And we're going to roll this up. I'm going to project this face and this face directly onto that plane. Actually, we're going to do this back one as well. We'll see why. Clicking on those, I can see now I have these new construction planes that are kind of outlining that flat surface that we're looking for. If I roll up, we can create a new one by going with our square. We're going to attach ourselves here, and we still have our construction on, so we can just come up, click on, and turn off that construction. Come down here, and on this one, I'm going to leave this one just kind of floating out here. And this, for this reason, is I want to go over constraints again. So we have this way in order to tie a point to a line or another point. So we're going to click on that constraint. We're going to click on our point, and then I'm going to click on that line that I had over here. With that, we have a new surface that we can essentially extrude, but we haven't set the distance in which we are coming off that back wall. That's why this line is still blue here. So once we do that, we'll be able to finalize this bottom plate. We're going to add a dimension. We can either click D or we can come up to create and do sketch dimension. If we click on the back line that we did, so this is why we did a construction line off the back wall, we can come to the front. Where'd my line go here? Maybe, oh. So that orientation was messing me up here. So we go back in here to here, and we're gonna set that at 2 inches as well. So we have this 2-inch over and 2-inch up. We're going to create a new flange. So we're going to go to sheet metal, create that flange. And on this one, again, in very important fashion, we want to make sure that we're on the correct side. So if it's on the bottom, that's making my gap for my shelf smaller than I want it to be. I want it to be 2 inches on the inside. So side 1, new component, and clicking OK. Again, we have this new component. It's not fixed in space, so I can move it around. So we'll go backwards 1 step, and I'm going to right click. I'm going to ground that to my parent. And then we're going to create that base flange from here and move up. Now with this one, If we don't necessarily know what that distance is on the inside, I just clicked OK right now to show you guys this. We can always go to our inspection tool, click on measure, measure off the inside face to the top of our flange here, and it's 3.499, so just very, very shy of 3.5 inches. We can click close. Remember, 1/1000th of an inch is less than a human hair, so very, very small difference. We're going to come down here to our history. So this is everything we talked about before. This is a way that we can modify things or go back in time. We can erase time, right? We can go back to these components, or we can move all the way back forward to where we're currently at. I can find that flange that I was just looking at, right click on it, and edit that feature from down here. Now that I have this back up, we just measured from the inside of that face to the outside of that flange, and it was 3.5 inches. I'm going to just round it up. And now we have that nice flush top to it. And we're going to have the bend position be on the inside, because if we're on the outside, we're going to be poking into where Dom's going to be putting her pencils and markers. So we want to give her that full 2 inches there. Now we have that. We're going to click OK. And we have the two L shapes that make up the center of our body. Now the last thing we're doing is we're going to make a divider so we can keep markers aside from pencils, and we're going to put a false bottom on this inside of it so that it don't fall all the way down into where our shelf is going to be stored all the way in the back. So now that we have that, we're going to end up selecting that original plane that we had on the origin. Remember, that origin is tied directly in the center of our part. We did that for a reason. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch. I'm going to zoom out so I can select that plane, sketch on my center plane, and then what we're going to do is hide my original two components. And the reason is that allows me to see just those two L's that I'm looking to make. With that, we're going to go to Create, Project again. We're going to select Construction and select that inside two faces of our parts, clicking OK when we're done. We have two construction lines in here that are those two surfaces. We can now draw with those as a reference. I'm going to click on that top one and the second one. And on this one, we accidentally did it with construction lines on. So there's a handful of ways that we can fix this. We can essentially click and hold Control on each one of these to select all of them individually. Oh, we're going to have to hold Shift, sorry. Shift. Once we have them all selected, we can come back up here and change our line type to construction, or we could have just drawn a new rectangle over that. Now that I have that, I do need to set this distance. Now I want that distance to be pretty low, but I don't want it to be down in here in this radius. So we're going to use a dimension off of that radius corner, and we're going to come up 1/4 inch. This will essentially have us have a gap later on for us to interact without making us have deformation in that bend area. Clicking Finished, we have this awesome rectangle. This is going to be our divider. We're going to create that additional flange. And on this one, we're going to select Center because it's already on the center. This is going to split our body across that sketch or that plane and have everything be centered up. We'll click OK, and we have that additional body. Now the last one here, we're going to create a construction plane off of the bottom of our part. We're going to select 0. And this plane, no matter where the bottom of our divider is, we're going to end up having the base travel with it. Creating our sketch, we're going to select in here. We're going to do one last projection on this face and this face. This will allow us to have those additional points for us to select. We're going to draw our rectangle in here. Lots of rectangles in this design. And the last thing we're going to do is go to sheet metal, create that flange off the base here, make sure that it's a nice solid flange, and ensure that we're coming downwards away from our divider. So we can see here, if we flip it over, everything looks great. We're going to do new component and click OK. Now that we have that, we can re-show our two side profiles, and we can see here that we have the basic outline of our design is now done. The last thing we're going to do here is we're going to add those mounting flanges that are on the inside of this part, and then we'll end it so that we can talk about interactions on the next one. Here, I'm going to hide these again. I'm going to click on Create on Flange, and I'm going to click on both of these surfaces. Dragging them down is going to create those two additional flanges that I'm looking for. And I'm going to give this 0.625. That should give us enough space to end up having our 632 hardware that we're going to put in. And we have them flush on the inside, which is really important. And do that thing on the same thing on the other side. Click on these two, 0.625. And we have those flanges. And now we have to do it on our outer L that we're going to be doing. So we're going to click on these two, as well as these ones. So we can do all four of these at the same time if we wanted to. 0.625 gives us that. And this is really cool where it ends up chamfering those two corners so that we don't have any contact during the bending process naturally. Clicking OK here. One big thing is we can see that we have interference here. These two parts are not going to go together in the end. And so we're going to end up having to do some clearance there. If I add back in those two sides, everything looks really, really good from this point of view. So always just hide things, look all the way deep down in your design to see that you end up having effects just like what's going on right here. Now, that's it for part one of our capstone. I hope you followed along. Make sure you pause, replay, and go as slow as you need in order to draw all those features and have it down before we move on to part two. In part two, we're going to take care of that interference that we saw, add our hardware holes and through holes, as well as add our drawer into it. So we'll see you on the next one.